Zain-Su's ideas are becoming clearer and clearer. The more he thinks about it, the more he feels it is possible. He can't help but excitedly hit the table. My son Nico has the potential to be a top student. Aaron-Su was displeased by the remark and took the opportunity to belittle Nico-Su. How else would you explain the saying that scholars' empty talk misleads the country? Nico, you cannot escape this stereotype either. Nico's mouth twitched. He sarcastically replied, Then I ask older brother to enlighten us. Aaron-Su is not flustered at all. What we need to think about is not how to scheme against Leon-Zo, but to observe Leon-Zo. We need to gather his information, then boldly formulate a plan based on that. Then we carefully scrutinize the process to assess the feasibility of the plan. Nico, do you have the honors and titles of an imperial examination graduate that can allow you to interact with students from the literati class to gather some information about the officialdom? Please go gather information about Leon-Zo, leaving no detail overlooked. Zain-Su. The Zo family house is responsible for the nightly patrols of the outer city by the inner city Imperial Blade Guard on weekdays. You are responsible for monitoring the Zo family house's activities. Do not do it yourself. Find a trustworthy person to keep an eye on them. I need to know where Leon-Zo goes in a day, what he does, and who he comes into contact with. Zain-Su nodded confidently, and suddenly thought of something. He stared at Aaron-Su. What about you? Aaron-Su smiled mysteriously. I am going to find a way out for the Su family house. We will discuss the details later and ask you about some things. I will stay overnight in your room tonight. Midnight. Nico-Su asked quietly. Older brother, have you gone to bed? Aaron-Su responded. No, I haven't. Just at this moment, Nico-Su said, Older brother, you have reached the top. Aaron-Su was shocked. But then he heard Nico-Su say, Put your hand back. Aaron-Su quickly moved his hand away. Another silence followed. They listened to each other's breathing. Aaron-Su asked, How long has it been since we slept in the same bed? Nico-Su thought for a moment. After you turn 10, you spend $200 each year practicing martial arts. After you fell out with my mother, we also grew distant. Aaron-Su was helpless. I thought you would come back with an aloof remark. We have never slept together. Aaron-Su couldn't help but feel emotional. Now we can still sleep together. But Lily will never have the opportunity to sleep with us again. And holds a place in Aaron-Su's heart. Her position is not that bad, actually. Tonight, Aaron-Su and Nico-Su sleep in the same bed. They couldn't help but recall many past events. Aaron-Su sighed. In fact, it's no wonder that Ant Imperial Blade Guard's job doesn't make much money. Zain-Su made great efforts to add to his salary, but in a whole year, only a little over 200 taels of silver were earned. Half of it was spent on me, and the rest is your expenses. It is inevitable for her to feel resentment in her heart. Nico-Su changed the subject. If this crisis cannot be overcome, the Su family may truly be finished. Assistant Minister Zo. If it doesn't collapse. After the imperial examination, it will be the time when disaster strikes the Su family house. Aaron-Su lamented. I will arrange a way out. If necessary, after the imperial examination, our whole family can leave the capital city. Zain-Su and I are resourceful wherever we go. It's just that you, Nico, studied hard for 10 years before passing the imperial examination as a graduate. Nico-Su chuckled. Honors and titles are fleeting. I am a scholar. How could I care about mere honors and titles? Aaron-Su wholeheartedly agrees. If the heavens had not brought forth Nico-Su Defying, then countless ages would feel like enduring a long night. When Nico-Su heard Aaron mocking him, he swiftly rolled up his bedding and ran away. No matter how much Aaron called out to him, Nico-Su paid no attention. The next morning, Lily-Su opened the window, allowing the first rays of morning sunlight to enter the chamber. She was enjoying the fresh air. She suddenly saw a figure passing by the window. It was Aaron Sue. The siblings silently locked eyes through the window for a few seconds. Aaron Sue's gaze subconsciously shifted downward. Lily Sue screamed and slammed the window shut. Aaron Sue thought with relief. My younger sister is growing up. Although she was not raised solely by Aaron himself, it is also gratifying to watch her grow up. In the boudoir, Lily Sue squats on the ground, blushing and hugging her chest. The maid grumbles, It's time to change this habit of yours. You should tidy up before opening the windows. Aaron saw it this time, right? Fortunately, it's your family. If outsiders saw it, how would you live? Lily Sue's cheeks were crimson. Her mind was filled with the scene just now. On the other side, Lila Sue was squatting on the ground. Her small hand gripped the pig-bristle toothbrush as she brushed her teeth very seriously. It seemed like a major project to her. She saw Aaron Sue arrive. With bubbles around her mouth, she uttered a vague greeting. Hello. Aaron Sue was curious. How do you wash it by yourself? Lila Sue said seriously. Dad said that a man must strive for self-improvement in order to excel in martial arts. Aaron Sue was speechless. Do you know that you are a girl? Lila Sue looked innocent and naive. Yes, I know. Aaron Sue said. Do you know the difference between boys and girls? Lila Sue was puzzled. What difference? Aaron Sue became a little distressed. This involves the biology lesson. The difference is a long and endless topic. Lila may not necessarily understand it. But Aaron Sue quickly came up with an idea. Boys will become more foolish as they grow up. Lila Sue suddenly realized. She said happily. No wonder Mom always says I'm a troublemaker. She runs around the room in circles. Happy to call me a troublemaker. Aaron Sue quietly closed the bedroom door. He decided not to have breakfast at home today. This morning, Capital City was in full bloom. Breakfast stalls were everywhere on the streets. Aaron Sue is addressing his hunger at the breakfast stall on the street. Just as Aaron Sue was about to pay, the stall owner saw that Aaron Sue was dressed in rags and refused to take the money. Aaron Sue pointed at the empty plate and said, Really don't want any money. The stall owner swallowed his saliva. Aaron Sue ate the amount of 4 to 5 people's breakfast. The stall owner felt reluctant in his heart. But he really dare not ask for silver. Unless he doesn't want to do business in this area anymore. Aaron Sue waved his hand to drive away the stall owner. I'll sit down and digest for a while. You can leave. Don't disturb me. The stall owner could only sigh in resignation. He had to just accept his misfortune. The systemic problems of the Defying dynasty have persisted for a long time. If this system is not reformed, the livelihood of the common people will not improve. Aaron Sue looked at the busy figure of the vendor. He remembered the reluctant yet hesitant look in his eyes when he couldn't bring himself to take the money. The pitiful vendor seemed like a beggar. From ancient times to the present, the ones who have harmed the common people the most deeply are always the invisible ants, the lords. After resting for a moment, he continued. Aaron Sue left in silence. The stall owner breathed a sigh of relief. Finally left. Then came over to clean up the dishes and chopsticks. Just the next moment, the dishes and chopsticks were thrown onto the table. The stall owner hurriedly ran out. Want to catch up with the officer just now? It's just a busy street. Aaron Sue's trace is long gone. He opened his mouth. His throat felt as if something was blocking it. So many years. He met an officer who paid for his meal for the first time. Aaron Sue took a leave from the government office and went home. Because he is going to Yunlu Academy with Nico Sue. 60 miles outside of the capital city, in the Blue Cloud Mountain, there is a world-famous Yunlu Academy. 2 people are driving side by side on the official road. Aaron Sue asked, Nico, have you always been curious? Do you think Saint is first rank? Nico Sue arrogantly lifted his chin. Do you think I would know? Aaron Sue speechless. If you don't know, just admit it. Why bother being so proud? Aaron Sue turned his eyes and continued. Then how long has Saint lived? Nico Su pondered. He lived to be 82 years old. Aaron Su was a bit surprised. The great saint is still the founder of Confucianism. Even without the first rank, it shouldn't be bad. He only lived to be 82 years old. Although it's considered long-lived for ordinary people of that era, his martial score is truly extraordinary in this world. Can't even the saints live a long life and enjoy longevity? Aaron Su doesn't indulge in wild and fanciful thoughts, because the purpose of this trip is to find a way out. Before they decide to take action, they first sent their female relatives to Yunlu Academy. This way, even if they are retaliated against by the Assistant Minister of Household Affairs, Yunlu Academy can also shelter their female relatives at home. But at this moment, Nikosu said, Yunlu Academy does not accommodate outsiders. This is the rule. Even I cannot make the teachers agree. Older brother, are you truly confident? Aaron Su shook his head. Where there's a will, there's a way. At Yunlu Academy, Grandmaster Milesley, who swore never to play chess again, stood with his hands behind his back by the corridor. He listened as two friends behind him argued fiercely. I took the wrong step. I want to start over, Travis retorted. Once a move is made, there's no turning back. That's the rule. Troy is one of the 4 great Confucian scholars of Yunlu Academy. He has talents in governing the country. His work, statecraft, is highly praised in the official circles of Defying. Milesley shook his head as he watched them argue. He then interrupted the two arguing individuals. Where is the head of Academy? Simon Jang's gaze was fixed on the chessboard. The Grand Princess has arrived. The head of Academy is with her. Troy sighed. The spring examinations will take place in 3 months. However, the students at the Academy do not have a strong interest in studying. I went to the dormitories last night for a walk. There were only a few students burning the midnight oil. The few lights that were on illuminated chessboards. He reached out and scrambled the pieces on the chessboard in frustration, saying, You are really wasting your talents on trifles. Simon John was furious. Losing is considered wasted talent, and winning is seen as being arrogant. You are no different from Milesley. You can't handle it. Students studying at Yunlu Academy are destined to have a difficult career path. Even if someone is able to pass the imperial examination and become an official, it's very difficult to rise to prominence in the government. They are often sent to remote areas to serve as officials or assigned minor positions in poor regions. This greatly dampens the enthusiasm of Academy students towards the imperial examination system. The crowd fell silent for a moment. Simon John said in a deep voice, This situation cannot continue. We must rekindle the enthusiasm of the students towards the imperial examination system. Troy solemnly nodded, his face serious. Even if it's hard to support, we have to persevere. Yunlu Academy cannot let the path to officialdom be cut off. Milesley pondered and said, Let's start a lecture to encourage studying. Let the head of Academy come forward. Simon John covered his forehead and said, The head of Academy has been encouraging studying every year. People are enthusiastic at first but gradually lose interest. It may not have a significant effect this time. Troy stroked his beard and furrowed his brows. Then let's try a different approach. What do you think about writing articles? He suggested. Milesley shook his head, saying it's not worth the effort. Simon John remarked. Then we can only resort to poetry. Poetry has always been touching. Composing a stirring poem will be much more effective than giving a lecture. But Defying Confucianism's poetry has been weak for a long time. If Gavin Yang doesn't take up the State Qin mission, we can pass this task to him. He is the best among us at this. Troy chuckled. You are more suitable for serving as an official in the court than I am. I see they are about to argue again. Simon Jang's bookkeeper entered quickly with bowed head and said, Teacher, your student Nico Su is here. After the bookkeeper left, Simon Jang began to show off. I recently received a new student. He is Nico Su's cousin with extraordinary poetic talent. Milesley immediately added, He is also my student. Troy's heart fluttered. Is he the poet who previously made a poem that everyone thought was good? You are all blinded by fame and fortune. The name Gavin Young. It must have been passed down through generations because of this poem. It is truly admirable. But good poems are rare. How many scholars only have a few good poems in their lifetime? And even fewer can make it into the history books. It's already rare for him to have written one good poem. Listening to it with pleasure, we can still hope for one or two more. So that the two of you can go down in history together? You two care too much about fame and gain. Over time, how will the virtue aura in your hearts be preserved? Good poems that have been passed down through the ages are not something that can be written casually. Moreover, the fact that the other party is not a scholar makes it even more rare for them to produce a good poem. Simon Jong and Miles Lee seem to have realized their mistake. Indeed, they were too utilitarian. So they bowed together. Travis smiled when he saw this. It's of great importance to correct mistakes. The two brothers originally came to Yunlu Academy seeking refuge. Aaron Su and Nico Su entered the elegant room. They said students had seen the teacher. Did you come to the academy to have your good poetry appreciated by the teacher? Aaron Su shook his head and said, The student is here to ask for a favor. He concealed his intention to retaliate against the Assistant Minister of Household Affairs. Miles Lee glanced at Simon Jong, who also had a troubled expression, and said helplessly, The academy prohibits outsiders from staying overnight. Nico Su says, Doesn't Grand Princess also live at the academy all the time? Nico Su nodded. Only members of the royal family or nobility can stay overnight here. Aaron Su almost burst out laughing. Nico's sharp tongue is still as cutting as ever. I'm actually looking forward to him reaching the fate-defying level in the future. Troy smiled as he carefully examined Aaron Su. Are you Aaron? Dressed in Confucian robes pretending to be the real scholar's Aaron Su, he said yes. Troy then said, If you can make a poem on the spot that satisfies the three of us, I will host the female relatives of Su family house in the academy temporarily. Upon hearing this, Aaron Su had a sense of confidence in his heart. Allowing the female relatives of Su family to stay in the academy was not the main point. The key point is his last sentence. This is the purpose of the two brothers coming here. Aaron Su sighed inwardly. You all want my poetry, huh? Unknown_1. He didn't say out loud what he was thinking and carefully considered his words. Should I freely compose poetry or stick to your predetermined themes? Three great Confucian scholars exchanged glances with each other. Aaron Su sighed inwardly. Indeed, they are not going to let me choose the topic casually. Otherwise, I could easily produce a good poem. At the same time, he also relaxed his breath because the theme of advocating studying was something his limited literary background could handle. In the poems related to advocating studying, the line, In books, there are houses of gold. In books, there are beauties to behold, should be appropriate. If I remember correctly, this poem seems to have been written by one of the emperors. It is mixed with the taste of honors and titles. Students graduating from Yunlu Academy have always faced difficulties in their careers. Nico expressed his sigh when he passed the imperial examination. I wonder which remote and poverty-stricken place he will be sent to in the future. People from Yunlu Academy may not necessarily be happy if they were to use that poem. Nico Su's brows furrowed even more. Simon Jong and Miles Lee have been looking forward to it all along. Troy, on the other hand, waited with a big smile on his face. Aaron Su snapped back to his senses. He said the students had embarrassed themselves. But the thought of his own terrible calligraphy skills made him feel embarrassed. So he simply asked Nico to ghostwrite his work. Aaron Su tapped on the desk a few times. The first line of the poem is, Studying late at night and waking at the crack of dawn. The second line is, One laments late learning only when old and gray. His face appears slightly excited. Miles Lee and Simon Jong both sighed at the same time. Aaron is indeed a rare poetic talent. Troy savored the poem of encouragement to study for a long time. Do you still remember our days studying at the academy when we were young? Simon John also recalled the scenes of studying in the first half of his life. This poem is talking about the time when we could only eat 2 steamed buns a day. We often felt hungry in the middle of the night, struggling to study by lamplight. Is this the reason you keep stealing my eggs every other day?
Scholars, how can you call it stealing? Didn't I return them to you later?
Milesley said. An egg in poverty is worth more than 1,000 pieces of gold today. Troy coughed and interrupted the argument between the two friends. Nico, regardless of your ranking, you are qualified for the job. Have you considered the future? History is always remarkably similar. Travis had not seen Aaron Sue before. He still maintains my disdain for fame and fortune. But when he saw Aaron Sue compose a poem of encouragement to study, he kept pestering Aaron Sue to worship him as his mentor. Aaron Sue naturally could not agree. So he changed the subject and said, Teacher Aaron's, I have a question to ask. I have been stuck at the spirit forging level for a long period of time. Because I have no merits or achievements, and my family is poor. I have never had the resources or opportunity to enter the chi forging level. Please, teacher, help me unlock the celestial portal. This is Aaron Sue's second purpose in coming to the academy. Although he can sell the artifact given by Jack's song to exchange for the silver needed to unlock the celestial portal. But that way, he is not happy at all. Aaron Sue is someone who tries his best not to spend money. Simon John shook his head and laughed. You're trying to cure a patient by killing him. I cultivate Confucianism. How can I help you unlock the celestial portal? Aaron Sue looked disappointed. Unwillingly, he asked, I don't understand. Since I need a master with soul forging level or higher to unlock the celestial portal, how did the first person open the celestial portal? Milesley asked back. Do you think the path of martial arts was created by someone? Milesley continued slowly. It was opened up by generation after generation of people. Perhaps initially, when someone serendipitously opened the celestial portal at the peak of spirit forging level, the chi forging level then became the peak of martial arts over the years. Only then did the complete martial arts category form. Aaron Sue caught the keyword. Serendipity? Troy took over the topic. Having the soul forging level master help unlock the celestial portal is the safest and most convenient method. But this is not the only method. When a baby is born, they have a natural aura. As they grow older, the celestial portal closes, and the natural aura hides within the body. To regain control of this aura, one must reopen the closed celestial portal. There are many methods to do so. Apart from the well-known, unlock the celestial portal, there are 2 other methods. The first method is the chi absorption method, which requires daily immersion in herbal baths since childhood to cleanse the meridians and open the celestial portal. Over the years, this method incurs a significant financial cost. This method has been phased out nowadays. The second method is to borrow external force to unlock the celestial portal, which is also the primitive method used by the predecessors. For example, swallowing Gwai pills, which are condensed essences of the cultivation of the Gwai clan. They contain immense energy. After swallowing the Gwai pill, one forcefully opens up the extraordinary meridians by using the immense energy within it. However, because the Gwai pill cannot be controlled, this method is particularly dangerous. Aaron Sue suddenly realized. I see. This student is both humble and polite. Inside Saint Academy, a group of students is gathered in front of a notice. After a long time, a student clutched their head and shouted loudly. Which great Confucian scholar wrote this poem of encouragement to study? More students expressed regret after reading it. Many students play chess under the lamplight at night instead of studying. They are truly wasting time, and are not even aware of it. Troy chuckled, stroking his beard. Little did he know that poetry is the most moving of all. Aaron truly possesses unparalleled poetic talent. He then lamented with a heavy heart. Such talent has been devoted to practicing martial arts, and now he has reached his prime years. It's too late to switch to the cultivation of Confucianism. Simon Zhang seemed to recall something. He said,
Listen to what Nico said. When they were young, their father had already decided that Nico would focus on studying, while Aaron would practice martial arts.
Miles Lee's voice was full of hatred. Zane Su is not acting like a decent human being. He has ruined a promising student who is good at studying. It's really detestable and despicable. The more the students discussed, the more intense it became. One of the students wondered,
This poem of encouragement to study must have been widely circulated. Why isn't there a signature?
Miles Lee overheard this sentence. At this moment, his mind was full of the words,
No signature.
The next moment, he disappeared on the spot. He appeared in front of the notice. He chuckled and wrote his own name in the mouth of lips. My teacher Miles advised with feelings on studying in the year of the metal rat. He composed this poem. Troy and Simon John are both angry. Shameless bastard. Elegant pavilion behind the academy. The head of the academy had a delightful conversation with the Grand Princess. Haley said in a clear and cold voice,
It has been half a year since we last met.
The head of the academy chuckled.
And many more silver threads have appeared in my hair.
Scott Zao smiled as he sipped his tea. Haley's eyes flickered like a cracked ice mirror. Today, when going up the mountain, she heard an academy apprentice reciting a poem. That poem is exceptionally good. Such a masterpiece. I was delighted to hear it. I'm not sure which great Confucian scholar wrote it. This Grand Princess of the Defying dynasty is different from the common women. Generally speaking, she is an elegant lady from a scholarly family background. Her proficiency in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting shows her talent. And this Grand Princess? She learns chess from Joseph Wei. She learns military strategy from Simon Zhang. She studies statecraft with Troy. She can recite Saints classics fluently. Her essays and theories are on par with those of the students at the Imperial Academy. She is extremely knowledgeable. At the age of 18, the Emperor allowed her to participate in the editorial work of the Imperial Academy of Scholars. 2 years ago, Haley attempted to revise the history books of the former dynasty, which led to protests from courtiers. The matter eventually died down. Head of the Academy, Scott Zao, shook his head and laughed when he heard this. The Academy of Yunlu is full of talents. However, they are not as good at writing poetry in a natural and unrestrained manner like others. In fact, the entire Defying Confucianism has become stagnant and rigid in thinking. When it comes to poetry, talent is the most important aspect. Haley was puzzled. What does the head of academy mean by this? Scott sighed. The author of this poem is not a scholar, but a low-ranking worker from Changle County. Haley's expression softened slightly. Then Haley earnestly asked,
Does the head of academy really not consider taking an official post? Confucianism prioritizes people, but life is brief.
Do not waste your precious time as the head of academy. The official position of State Qin Imperial Secretariat was originally granted to Scott Zao. However, Scott Zao declined to take office and recommended Gavin Yang to the royal government. Scott Zao sighed and said,
If wasting my precious time could pave a path of learning for future generations, why wouldn't I do it?
Unfortunately, I have spent over a decade in the bamboo forest seeking enlightenment, putting in painstaking effort, yet I cannot surpass the barrier set by Sub-Saint Sign. Haley, with a calm demeanor, said,
The head of academy is too attached. How did it come to this?
My father the Emperor invites you to serve again. If you truly consider the well-being of the students at Yunlu Academy, you should not refuse. Scott Zao chuckled and said,
Am I getting less able to control Joseph Wei, or is the rebellion technique becoming more powerful?
Haley spoke from the heart, saying,
It's for the people of Defying. It's for the welfare of the world.
Scott Zao's smile on his face became more mocking. People? Welfare of the world. Haley sighed. After the Battle of Mountains and Seas, Defying's national power gradually weakened. Natural disasters continued year after year. People who occupy a position without doing any work are countless. The harm of low-ranking workers becomes more and more apparent. The officials of the imperial court only care about party struggles. There are countless idle talkers. There are very few who actually work to build a nation. Nowadays, society lacks a seamstress to patch things up. Finished. She didn't wait for Scott Zao to speak. She continued to talk eloquently. 3 years ago, the northern neighbor tore up the treaty. They repeatedly plundered the border and oppressed the people. The southern neighbor destroyed the post roads. They sneakily attacked the military town in an attempt to reclaim lost territory. The countries in the western regions are watching coldly. The Buddhist sect is using this as leverage to attempt to spread their teachings to the Central Plains. She gradually increased her tone and said, "As scholars, shouldn't you showcase your ambitions and rejuvenate national prestige?" Scott stared at Haley for a moment. He then shook his head and sighed. "It's not that I don't want to, but the timing is not right." "Please come back, Grand Princess." Haley's disappointment was evident in her eyes, as she was about to say her goodbyes and leave. Suddenly, hurried footsteps could be heard coming from outside the elegant pavilion. A teacher from the academy rushed in, exclaiming, "Head of Academy, something terrible has happened. Milesley, Simon Zhang, and Troy are fighting." Haley suggested, "Head of Academy, let me accompany you." Scott Zao did not reply. Within 10 steps is Saint Academy. The next moment, a virtue aura suddenly surrounded the two of them. They both disappeared from the spot at the same time. When Haley opened her eyes again, they had already arrived at Saint Academy. But then virtue aura rose again. Scott Zao's figure disappeared once again. Haley walked out of Saint Academy and stared blankly at the sky. She obviously couldn't understand what had happened. 3 great Confucian scholars actually got into a physical fight over a poem of encouragement to study. Simon Zhang snorted. "Milesley, you shameless scoundrel. You were competing with me for students back then, but today you did such despicable thing." Milesley loudly refuted. "As a teacher, what's wrong with helping apprentice polish articles and poems? It's clearly you, this jealous old man, who envies my talent." Troy disdainfully said, "You can shut up. I can't stand it anymore." Milesley glanced at him and said, "What's your business, Troy? Go cool off on the side." At this moment, Simon Zhang took out a scroll from his arms and said leisurely, "It seems that it is difficult to determine the winner between Virtue Aura." He tore out one page and set it on fire. The paper burned to ashes in an instant. Suddenly, green beetles sprouted out of thin air, each of them shimmering with a green hue. The beetles buzzed as they flew towards Milesley. Milesley remained calm, pulling out a book in response. He tore out 2 pages and set them on fire simultaneously. "I have gained something from traveling around the world in the past few years." When the pages burned almost to ashes, they transformed into a bright red lizard. The lizard spewed flames that were tens of meters long, turning the green clouds in the sky into ashes and smoke. At that moment, another page of paper is burned to ashes. A charming young lady in revealing attire appeared as if by magic. Her figure was as light and graceful as a swimming fish. She appeared in front of Simon Zhang shortly after. Simon's eyelids felt heavy. A wave of irresistible drowsiness washed over him. Just at that moment, Troy also set fire to the piece of paper in his hand. A bright golden pill radiated golden light. Milesley suddenly encountered a betrayal. He stumbled from being hit by the golden light. Simon Zhang was also burned by the golden pill. He broke free from drowsiness, quickly urging Virtue Aura to disperse the young women whose clothing had been exposed. The 3 great Confucian scholars were fighting fiercely in midair. The students below found it very interesting to watch. They never expected to see the great Confucian scholars fighting one day. It's truly a rare sight. Haley is a bit surprised by the methods of the great Confucian scholars. At the rank 6 Confucian scholar level, they can learn supreme skills from other categories and record them in books. Simon Zhang is using the methods of a witch, The young lady depicted by Miles Lee should belong to the shaman category. As for Troy's techniques, if you haven't figured it out yet, they belong to Taoism's golden pill. Simon Zhang gnashed his teeth. Shameless bastard, don't blame me for being merciless. Miles Lee, your pants have fallen down. Miles Lee suddenly felt a chill under his chest. He was stunned to find that his pants had slipped down to his ankles. Miles Lee's heart exploded in anger as he shouted loudly. Everyone's pants have fallen down. Numerous people below were bending over in fear to pull up their pants that had slipped down. The white jade amulet on Haley's waist shone and dodged the blow. At this moment, a majestic voice resounded clearly in everyone's ears. Fighting among fellow disciples is prohibited here. Levitation is also prohibited here. As the words fell, the virtue aura emanating from the three great Confucian scholars automatically dissipated. Newton's physics reasserted itself on Earth and pulled them down from midair. Scott Zhao, with his salt and pepper hair disheveled, walked calmly to the three people with a serious expression on his face. What's going on? Simon Zhang and Miles Lee exchanged silent glances and instantly reached a tacit understanding. There's nothing wrong. We just had some academic disagreements. None of us could convince each other. So, we decided to approach it in a different way. Troy suddenly reported the two of them. I reported to the head of academy. They are deceiving you. Scott Zhao's gaze was drawn to a notice board. He focused on it for a moment. When he saw the small print, everything suddenly made sense to him. Scott Zhao looked displeased. What does it mean they just hid from me? He was about to speak. Haley appeared behind him. She looked at the notice and asked, Who is the author of this poem? Simon Zhang quickly said, He is my student. Farewell Gavin Yan to Stay Cheen is also written by him. Miles Lee added, His name is Aaron Su. He is a law enforcement government officer in Changle County and also my apprentice. Haley felt the name sounded familiar, as if she had heard someone mention it before, but she couldn't remember clearly, so she couldn't recall. Such great talent working as a law enforcer in Changle County is truly an underutilization of skills. Haley's clear gaze swept over the crowd. Where is he? Troy said he went on a mountain hike.